second time this week, our WNWO Moms on the Go are joining us, and today we are talking about a very serious subject, and that is disciplining your kids. I guess the question really is to spank or not to spank, I guess, kind of. So a pretty serious subject here. Molly, let's start with you.
Well, I think the first thing that we want to say is that this segment is not to judge anybody by any means, because all three of us actually use different forms of punishment or discipline, and we're just trying to give some new and different methods to maybe let parents think about.
Absolutely.
So we're not trying to judge anybody on what they're doing.
So where do you stand on disciplining your kids?
I am actually a non-spanker.
Okay.
Anti-spanking.
Now, did you grow up in a household in which you were not spanked? Does that have any influence on it?
I think so. I can't remember ever being spanked. I know my brother was a couple times, and my mom kind of changed her methods. But, you know, my parents we had a house that was negotiable, and so if there was something that we want to do, they always listened to why we wanted to do it. In the end, we might not have been able to do it, but we always were allowed to have a voice and an opinion. And, you know, ultimately they made the best decision for us. But I think with that, like, you know, we learned not to be afraid to go to them with anything.
Right.
So, you know.
Now, Allie, what about you? Where do you stand on the discipline level?
I have spanked my boys because my middle child he will not listen for the life of you, and you have to slow him down and tell him what is going on. And if it requires a spanking, it requires a spanking. That is my last resort, though. I do not like to spank my kids because I think it's a little bad.
And did you grow up in a household where you were
I did get spanked, yeah. And my grandma had a spanking stick, and she would write our name on it.
And you were saying that as well, right?
And so I would behave. I mean, I think that it is a good form of discipline, but you have to do it the right way. You can't spank all the time.
Right. Okay. What about you, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence, but I'm a spank. I mean, I've spanked Colton before, and I grew up. I mean, we all got spanked. There was really no question. But my mom, again, was a single mom with 4 kids, so it was really tough for her with 4. I would say semi-rebellious. You know, we were all kind of doing our own thing. We didn't really want to listen ever. And my mom had a spanking stick too, and we always. You know, I come from a religious family, so on our spanking stick she had the Bible verse, "Spare the rod and spoil the child," written on it. So we're always like, no!
Do you have that same
No,
rod?
I don't have a spanking stick. I mean, Colton's 2.5, so we kind of more like use it, I guess, as kind of like a threat. And like, he will not go to bed for the life of him. He gets out of bed, he gets out of his room. It's like a battle every night to get him to stay in his bed. So we're always like, do you want to be spanked? You know, and he's like, no. So we kind of use it to, I don't know. I mean, we have had to spank him once or a few times, but we try to use it to keep him, you know, like listening, I guess.
Well, you know, we have to take a break, but when we come back in the next hour, I want to ask you ladies about, is it important that you and your spouse are on the same page about discipline? So we'll talk about that in just a little bit, coming up in the next hour. Joining us now for the second hour. And first of all, we talked about this last hour, and you do not spank, you choose not to spank your children, right, Molly?
Correct.
And you two are in favor of spanking.
We have to separate each other.
Spankers and the anti-spankers.
Disagreement. Now, we wanted to touch upon this hour the importance of having the spousal support, and if you disagree with your spouse on discipline measures, that could create some tension in the house, correct?
Yeah,
now,
I definitely think so.
Yeah, Lisa, where your husband, do you guys agree on discipline measures?
Yeah, I think we're both, I guess, spankers. We're not in like disagreement on that. I think we don't want to spank if it's not necessary, so we try not to do that often. But we're both okay with using that as either a last resort or like kind of using that to get Colton to listen to us, to like say, do you want to, don't stay in bed or you're going to get spanked, and he'll stay in bed, so we're both okay with
What
that.
about you, Allie?
We're on the same page too, and one thing you do have to keep in mind is to be on track in front of your kids. If you guys are like kind of disagreeing about some punishment, save it for the bedroom later and talk to your husband.
Don't fight in front of your kids.
Yeah, because your kids can see everything you do.
Now, turning kind of to where you guys growing up, I think a lot of people, how they discipline their children is how they were disciplined as children. Like Molly, for instance, were you not spanked as a kid?
Right. We were not spanked.
Yeah.
Never.
So you think that kind of carries over because you think your mom did a good job. So if that worked for your mom, probably it would work for you as well.
Right. I actually lived with my dad for a large portion of my childhood. So, he was definitely willing to listen to why we wanted to do something, and would hear our reasonings, but in the end we might not have gotten our way, but we at least were allowed to have a voice. And I think because of that, we weren't afraid to tell him anything. you know, we didn't try to sneak things from him or hide things because we knew we could at least go and say, here's why we want to do it, you know, can we do it? And I mean, there were times that he said no, you know, and that was the end, you know, that was the final say, but we at least, you know, weren't afraid to go to him with things.
Yeah. That's great. It's good. It's so good to have such diverse perspective. Now, let me ask you this. You do choose to spank your kids for discipline measures. At what age is the appropriate age, in your opinion, to start?
I think it's honestly depends on the child. Like when I think there's a difference between your kid not understanding and knowing what they're doing, and like when they get a little past 2 and they start being like actually more deceiving, I guess, or
knowing
tricky. Like
the difference between right and wrong, maybe is the right age.
Because
I mean, when they're little, they don't know. I don't think it's appropriate to spank a small, very small child, or you know, even. I think Colton, I don't know if we even started even saying, you know, do you want to get spanked till, like, he got a big boy bed, you know, and then he wouldn't stay in bed, things like that. So when they're little and they don't know, they don't know better.
So I mean, we're not spankers right away, like we said that. It's like our last resort. So the 1, 2, 3 method is what I use, and the stairs and sending them to their room is better than spanking. But
Absolutely. Very good advice. And where are some resources? I know, Molly, there's a few websites that parents can go to.
Positiveparenting.com is one that I follow a lot. They have a newsletter that you can sign up for, and once a month they send you different topics and how to handle those. But their whole thing is positive reinforcement and giving you other, I guess, forms of discipline and different mindsets to use when you're dealing with your kids.
All right, ladies, a really good topic of conversation. Of course, visit their blog, momsandheels.net, and also our website, northwestohio.com, for all of this information and much more. Thanks so much, ladies.